Oh man, when I hit that control tab and the next tab is Rekieta. Shit. All right, so here's what my boy Rackets has been up to. Now that the gray matter is properly dissolving inside his head. Um, so someone asked him, rhetorically speaking, how do you explain to your kids that you're a cam whore? And I think that this was like a joke at his expense. Like you're like a whore on the internet and you use the webcam. So like in a kind of sense, like it's like a derisive comment. But Rekieta, for whatever reason, decides to answer this with a 10-minute long explanation about how, like in general, the times are different, so it's not as big a deal anymore. Children don't care about their parents being whores. As long as it puts money in the bank, that's all that matters. It's an accepted profession now. Like he just goes on and on. And then at the very end, I guess he kind of realizes how that sounds. So he just is like, I've never done that. And my wife has never done that. But yeah, it was like a really, really, really long soliloquy about how OnlyFans is normal now. And so how do you explain that to your kids that you're a cam whore? Well, you just tell them, because obviously your children are going to be okay with the idea that you how many men have you spread them pushy lips for is like a million. They're okay with that, which I felt was a really lackluster answer. So I'll just play like 1 or 2 minutes of this and then I'll move on to the next thing.
Ron Q. Bacardi says, how do you explain that you're a cam whore to your kids? I think people would be surprised at how they do it. I don't know, but I would wager that today, once your kids are kind of old enough to understand like what that is, I think a lot of them just say, yeah, this is what mommy started doing, and it's why we go to Disney every year. I think that's what they do. I think they just tell them, because they're gonna fucking find out. So the question is, when they're old enough to know, and I would assume that their logic would be, you know what? This is a very safe way for mommy to do this. And we get, it's how mommy puts food on the table. And so, I can do this and work from home and be with you and hang out all day and we can do fun trips, or I can go be a secretary and have people stare at my chest without paying me or whatever. Like, I think they probably these days are pretty straightforward with it. And you know, that's hard.
That's such a gross take. That's now that I really think about that, that's such an insulting take. Any woman who works any position is just a whore. If you're a secretary or an executive assistant and you're a woman, you're only there because you're attractive and men stare at your tits. You have no value outside of your attractiveness to your employer. Like, that's what he's actually saying. Being an actual literal whore is the exact same thing as doing a real job and having cleavage. And it's like, what a fucking horrific line of thought
for conservatives to reconcile, because conservatives get stuck in this mindset of, if I were showing my tits to the entire world, I would be ashamed. He uses the words conservative as like a pejorative. Like, you know what those fucking conservatives think. Like, he's excluding himself out of that group when he says this. Like, and so therefore this person must be ashamed of what they're doing. And how could they possibly tell their kids and face them on a day-to-day basis? I think the answer is probably like, they just tell them. Because to them, it's not abnormal. To the kid, it's not abnormal. Definitely to kids these days, the idea of a woman being naked on camera is only abnormal if you teach your kids that it's abnormal. Right now, if she's raising them in particular Christian communities, or if she says that doing all this is bad, and then she has to do it, well, then there's going to be shame and all of that stuff built in, of course. Right? If it's a contradiction to what they say is good, it's like if your mom's chain smoking and says don't smoke or you'll die, or they tell you over and over not to do weed and you catch them lighting up a bowl in the bath.
But the reason why a parent says don't smoke, even when they smoke, is that smoking is bad for you. Objectively, smoking is the worst thing that you can do to your body, like as a habit. It's your heart. Like, if you ask any doctor, especially like heart doctors, what's the number one thing to do for heart health? They will say, without a doubt, don't smoke because it's terrible for you. So a parent who is addicted to nicotine and has issues kicking the habit is going to tell their kids, I am addicted to cigarettes and it's very bad for my health. I will not live as long a life or a high quality life as I could have if I did not smoke. So therefore you should not smoke. And obviously that's not as good a role model as simply not smoking, but there's a genuine reason why they're doing that. A parent would say, don't be an OnlyFans whore because it's degrading, humiliating, and relies on a lack of self-esteem, because they don't want their children to be degraded and humiliated and have no self-esteem and just be a whore. So there is an objective reason why you would not want people to smoke, in the same way that you would not want them to be a prostitute. And he just doesn't understand that. It's so weird how you can just tell that there's actual brain damage happening with Rekieta, and he can no longer coherently think, and he cannot make logical he can't follow logical sequences one after the other.
Bathroom, sure, that's a harder conversation, but this age, like you got 16-year-old kids, you think they don't know that there's OnlyFans out there? Unless you teach them to care, they're not. It's normalizing. Again, I'm not saying that's good or bad or any, like, it just is. It's normalizing certainly amongst the next generation.
But maybe
because Twitch normalized really quickly.
Maybe you should look at him shake. Hold up, just wait for a second. Look at his handshake. That's not normal, right? Like, that's not just his body moving. That's like his hand actually shaking. Am I hallucinating? Whatever, I'll play it with it sound.
Found out that you were wearing a bikini while bouncing on a ball playing Quake 2 on Twitch. What the fuck are you doing? Go get a job at the grocery store, you whore. Right?
Yes.
I didn't fight no Vietnam for you. But now it's like, well, at least I'm not shoving things in my asshole, Grandpa. Like, that's a good point. Plus, you got a high KDR on Quake 2. Good job. Almost as high as my KDR in NAM. And also, let's just be honest. Money cures fucking near all questions about it. Why are you doing this? You notice I just bought a $2 million house? Cash. I got money left over.
Nobody cares.
Oh.
Nobody cares. The people who are obsessed with money are like the most vapid, retarded people on the fucking planet. Mommy is a whore, and her nude pictures are out there forever, and students at my school are going to find it and tease me with it. And when I'm an adult, people are going to find these pictures, and I'm going to be haunted by them for the rest of my life. Oh, at least I went to Disney World. There's no way that mommy could have gotten a real fucking job and taken people to Disney World. I know as a child, I went to Disney World every fucking year, and my mom worked a real job that required education and everything in order to do it. And strange, she didn't have to be a whore. She raised me by herself. She didn't even date for like 15 years after she had me. And she managed to do all that literally as a single mom with a college diploma, working a real job. And I still went to Disneyland or Disney World every year, sometimes twice a year. It's not like it's just bizarre. And it's like, that's his entire world. His entire world is that if my income is my score, and I can objectively take my score as my income and compare myself to other people. And if my score is higher than your score, I'm better. I'm doing better at life. I have more wisdom, and I am objectively more correct than you because my score is higher. And it's like, are you like, it's just like such a pathetic, utterly pathetic, childish, juvenile perspective to have, that you can just whip out your, like, I bought a house. Okay. most people have a house. I think even in the US, even right now, most people have a house. It's generally considered a progressive step that people take in their life at some point. Being 40 and buying a house is normal. Going to Disney World is normal. You don't have to sell your asshole to do it. I'm so thankful that I don't like that my mom just worked a normal job and wasn't a prostitute. Could you imagine if my mom did, like, if this was like 20 years in the future and I had a mom that did OnlyFans or something, and I tried to get through what I do now with my mom having been an OnlyFans whore? Can you imagine how fucking like demoralizing and degrading that would be? And it'd be like, well, it's your mom, so it doesn't matter. It's like, it's what she did to take you to Disney World every year. Like, how the fuck am I gonna show my face in public and stream and do forum stuff and try to be a public figure, you know, doing things for freedom of expression and internet health and shit when my mom's nudes are out there? Like, what a fucking, how fucking awful would that be? And I'm not even like in a particularly sensitive environment. I'm like in the shithole of the internet, right, where anything goes. And it's like, where you have people talking about jerking off to child porn, and that's just like something that you have to deal with, that you encounter. It would still suck. And he's gonna try and pretend that it's just like a normal job now. It's like, well, you can say it'll never be normal. It'll never be normal. Prostitution has been around for thousands of years, literally thousands of years, and it has never normalized. Being a prostitute was biblically shameful. It was shameful before the era of the New Testament. It's shameful after the era of the New Testament. It was shameful all throughout human history, and it remains to be shameful today. Just because it's digital now doesn't somehow excuse it as being not shameful. You're still a whore. And he just doesn't get it. It's really sad. Like I said, I honestly, genuinely, unironically, without any exaggeration, not just trying to be a dickhead, I really feel like he's brain damaged now, and it's too far gone, and he'll never pull up because it's just he doesn't know how to think. He goes on. I haven't watched this, so this is a genuine first reaction to this, but I'll play it. He got into an argument about Russell Brand. Now, I don't know the nature of Russell Brand's accusations, but I'm assuming that he sexually harassed somebody, or allegedly has sexually harassed somebody who was under the age of 18, probably 16, 17, which is the legal age of consent in the UK. So he gets off on a tangent about age of consent.
Look, I was listening to your show a little bit last night, Nick, and I can understand where you're coming from, because I heard you say that, like, you know what, like, when you hear that this dude was like 31 and he's dating a 16-year-old, like that can be icky. Like it's kind of gross. I agree with you. Like, I mean, it's weird. I mean, mind you, I met my husband when I was 16 and he was much older than me. And we ended up getting married and being together for like 20 years. So it's just a weird situation when you're like, when you're 16, I feel like it definitely depends on your mental, like how mature you are. Cause different 16-year-olds are different from 16-year-olds. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it depends on the child, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
Mature faster. Some people don't.
That's the inherent issue with age of consent laws and why they actually vary, right? Like that's why they're different state to state, country to country. And there are certain points where most of humanity will agree, like, this is a little bit much, right? Like when you get to the weird, like some like East African countries would have like ages of consent really low, like horrifically low, like around 6 and stuff like that. And then, you know, you can also envision a country saying, well, no, we actually think it should be even higher than 18. It could be 20 or whatever. And it's kind of up to societies to set where they are. But people, of course, individually, it's amazing though, if the age of consent is what you personally consider too low, you don't have to like dip down into it. Right. And you can disapprove of things. For me, I try to avoid like getting overly crazy on anything that is legal and not outright ridiculous. I personally think 16 is too young for my opinion, because I can't talk to anybody under 30 without wanting to slam my head into a brick wall. But that being said, like I can't fault someone for doing something that might be questionable for my opinion, but is still like wholly legal. And
why not? That's like definitely like a change in his stance. It used to be, I'm okay. I will denounce anything I disagree with, even if it's legal. And now he's like, well, I won't have an adverse thought about things that are legal. It's like, why are you so afraid of? It's like he's upset. And this is, I think, what Dick did as well. Dick was okay casting judgment on people until he realized that people would also judge him and the things that he does. And he didn't like that. So he just decided, fuck it. I have no principles anymore. I'm not going to have an opinion on anything. Anything that anyone does anytime is perfectly okay with me. Because that way nobody can say I'm being a hypocrite, and maybe they'll shut the fuck up eventually. And then Nick at some point got really pissed off with people holding him to any standard. And he said, fuck it. I have no principles anymore. I'm just going to be as debauched as possible. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. I'm not going to judge anyone for anything that they do either. And then maybe people will one day shut the fuck up, and my audience will be less critical of me and the things that I do.
It's not just like, this is the thing. It's not just legal, right? It's a society in which it's socially acceptable. Her mom knew she was dating Russell Brand, drove her over to his house. This is not like this is some like a big controversial thing across everything. And that's why it went unmentioned for what, 20 years now, or however long it's been. So it's
and even with the other woman too, like, I mean, this is why there's so many things getting muddied in this, because like one of the, like, for me, when someone comes up and they're like, okay, this guy raped me, there has to be some very specific things that happen for me to associate the word rape to what happened to this person.
You know, someone says in chat that he was defending Shadman earlier. If you don't know, Shadman has twice drawn pornography of real children. He drew pornography of Keemstar's daughter, and he drew pornography of the actress Daphne Keane, who was the girl Logan in the Marvel movie. And in both instances, law enforcement got involved in that because it was considered like a illicit portrayal of a real child. So Shadman has no, and by the way, with Daphne Keane, it was just a sexual thing, and he made it explicit that he wanted to fuck Daphne Keane, the child, in his Discord. It wasn't the character Logan. It was the actress Daphne Keane, who was like 12 when that movie came out. And with Lieutenant Corbus, he drew pornography of her, and she was like 10. And that wasn't ambiguous. That's not a character. That's a real girl. And then he drew pictures of Daniel Keem's daughter, or stepdaughter, I think, and that's a real girl. And he drew that as a work. He drew a not safe for work, and then a safe for work picture of his stepdaughter. And the safe for work picture was more obviously meant to be Keemstar's stepdaughter, and he sent that directly to him. It was like a safe work picture, but it was them together, and you could tell by the context of that tweet that, in the fact that it was Shadman sending it from like his porn account to Keemstar, it was like, don't fuck with me. I'll draw you fucking your stepdaughter if you fuck with me, if you piss me off. So anyone Shadman, literally, there's not enough bad things that can happen to Shadman. He should be properly, after due process, hanged by the neck until dead, and not by a guy who's really good at tying ropes, a guy that's really bad at it. And anyone defending Shadman can get fucked. I don't care. Yeah, so fuck him. Yeah, he's just dumb. I don't know how else to put it. What's his face? Nick has just decided that he's just going to be an idiot. For as long as possible, I have no hope for him anymore.
Thank you for watching this clip. This is the CACA. Remember to like and subscribe.